We have lots of curveballs that we're going to get thrown at us over this next year, and the ability to think critically, to be able to make decisions with limited information and be decisive is going to matter tremendously. Hi, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Kerry Siggins, and I'm so glad you are here today. Today, I want to talk about how to make making tough decisions easier, because let's face it, every leader has to make tough decisions. This is near and dear to me because I have had to make some really tough decisions over the past few months, both personally and professionally, and it's hard. Sometimes I don't want to make the decisions, but I know as a leader that I have to. I have to be decisive. I have to act swiftly. I have to be able to perform under pressure and make decisions under pressure. And that's not always easy to do. But the reality is that the ability to make tough decisions swiftly and effectively is what separates good leaders from the great ones. And I don't know about you. I'm pretty sure because you're listening to this podcast, you want to be a great leader, and so do I. So this is a really critical skill to be able to master. In fact, according to a study by McKinsey, a staggering 72% of senior executives believe bad strategic decisions were either about the same or more frequent than good ones. So that means that we have a tremendous opportunity to get better at making decisions. So this is a really all-encompassing problem that we have to face as leaders, and it's only going to get more challenging. We have lots of curveballs that we're going to get thrown at us over this next year, and the ability to think critically, to be able to make decisions with limited information and be decisive is going to matter tremendously. Another interesting statistic that I found when I was researching for this podcast is that decision-making effectiveness is 95% predictive of an overall business performance. That's huge. So our decisions as leaders matter tremendously for the success of our teams and our organizations. And the vast majority of us think that we can do a better job of making better strategic decisions. So that's what I wanted to talk about today and share some tips that might help you feel a little bit better about the decisions that you have to make. So let's jump into it for today. Number one, embrace a structured decision-making framework. So if you have a framework that helps you make decisions, it streamlines the entire process. This might be something as simple as identifying the problem, identifying the solutions, weighing the pros and cons, and then making a decision. This framework can provide a systematic approach, reducing the overwhelming nature of making complex decisions. I have been using the DECIDE model for making decisions, and so I want to go over this with you today. The DECIDE model offers a clear step-by-step approach to solving these complex problems to be able to look at the different scenarios and help you make a decision that hopefully gets the outcome that you're looking for. So the D is for define the problem. So you want to clearly define the issue at hand. What needs to be decided? Why is this decision so important? Really set up that clear definition so that you have a direction for your decision-making process. The E in DECIDE stands for establish criteria. So this will be how you determine the standards that the potential solutions will be evaluated with. This criteria could include factors like cost or time, impact on stakeholders, or alignment within the organization. So you need to establish the criteria so that you can weigh the pros and cons. The C in DECIDE stands for consider all the alternatives. So you want to brainstorm a list of all the possible courses of action, all the solutions that you might take. And at this stage, it's important to just keep an open mind and even consider unconventional plans. And you're not evaluating them yet. You're just throwing all of the possible ideas out there so that you can evaluate them later on. Then you go into the I and DECIDE, and that's identify the best alternative. This is now where you go into evaluating all of those different ideas that you just brainstormed. So you want to evaluate each of those options against the criteria that you established with point E. And so this will be ranking all of the different alternatives, doing a cost-benefit analysis, or using other criteria to determine what is the most suitable choice. The second D in DECIDE is development and implement a plan of action. Once you've identified the best alternative, then you need to develop a plan for how you're going to go implement this. So it should include specific steps and timelines and responsibilities and the resources required. And finally, the last E in DECIDE is evaluate and monitor the solution. So after you've put your plan into action, you need to monitor its progress and impact. How is it going? Do we need to course correct? Evaluate the outcomes against the expected results and prepare to make adjustments if needed. Now, I really, really like this model and I want to start implementing it in Stone Age because a lot of us think that when we make a decision and we don't get the outcome that we wanted, that it was a bad decision. And that simply isn't true. Sometimes we don't get the outcomes that we want, and it doesn't mean it was a bad decision. And we need to separate the outcome from the decision-making process. If you use a framework like the DECIDE model, then you went through all the different steps. And yes, you can go back and you can say, okay, what did we miss? Did we miss some specific data that would have helped us pick a different solution to implement? If we would have had more information, could we have gotten it? Like you can go in and you can analyze which part of the DECIDE model you could have done better at. But if you follow a process like this and you don't get the outcome you want, it doesn't mean it was a bad decision. It simply means that you didn't get the outcome that you want. So that's why I think a framework for decision making is really important. Number 2, I would offer that you explore different viewpoints. I know when I have to make a tough decision, it's really important for me to get a different perspective. So I go and get a range of input from my team members so that I can uncover blind spots and they can potentially come up with an innovative solution that I haven't thought about. So I think it's really important to go get those viewpoints, to be collaborative. It enriches the decision-making process. It brings people along and it helps give you perspective. So get a few trusted people that you feel comfortable talking about the major decisions that you have to make and get their ideas and formulate that plan together. And it can really help make you feel better about the decisions you're going to have to make. Number 3, prioritize transparency and communication. You know, I'm such a believer in transparency. I believe that you should tell people everything that you possibly can. When people understand the why, it's much less scary. So when you are making a tough decision, make sure you're being transparent in the decision-making process. It builds trust within the team and it helps people feel like they have a say in what's going on. So you want to be able to explain the why we have to make this decision, especially this really tough decision. And when people understand the why, then they're more likely to say, okay, I get it. Here's my suggestions. Here's how I can help, or here's where resistance might be with this. So being an effective communicator is really important. So be transparent, communicate the why, ask for that input. And when people understand the rationale, they're more likely going to buy in and be aligned, which is really important for smooth implementation. So don't be afraid to talk about it. Just be clear about it. Explain the why. Number 4, I know this is a hard one, but this is the reality of all leaders. You have to accept imperfection and be prepared to pivot. No decision is guaranteed to be right, to get the outcome that you want, or to be perfect. So it's okay. Accept that decisions are going to need to be reevaluated down the line. That's part of really good leadership. I have changed my mind so many times because we've made a decision and then we get more information or we see something isn't working and we need to pivot. And agile leadership is really, really critical in these crazy times that we're living in right now. So the willingness to pivot and when new information becomes available or when circumstances change is a very valuable trait to have as a leader. I also believe, at least for me in my experience, knowing that I can pivot and that I'm capable of pivoting if I need to makes me feel better. If I make a decision and I'm not getting the outcome that I want, I'm not afraid to pivot. I know that I can do that. I've had it in the back of my mind that if this doesn't work, then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. So when you accept imperfection in the process and you're prepared to pivot, you are thinking about plan B and plan C and maybe plan D, and you are going to be more willing to make those changes rather than digging your heels in and sticking with a decision that maybe isn't working out the way that you intended. That's part of my process is I'm making a tough decision. Okay, if it doesn't work, then we'll change it. We'll fix it. We'll go and do something that's different. And that makes me feel a little bit better. Remember, nothing is ever permanent, ever. Even though something may feel really, really big and it could be really big, you're going to get through it. You're going to learn from it. And it might be painful, but the reality is that it's not permanent and that you can pivot and you can move towards a different outcome if the decision isn't working out the way that you wanted it to. And then number 5, leverage data and insights. You need information. Data is queen these days, and leveraging analytics and insights can provide a solid foundation for decision making. I know that when I have as much information as I can possibly get, it makes me feel better about making a decision. Sometimes you have to go with your gut, but the more data that you have can help you validate what your gut's telling you, and you can balance the two. I think that there's always a balance. I mean, some people will tell you never use your gut, only make it on data, but I'm not the believer in that. I believe that intuition, which really comes from your experience as a leader, it is informing you of what experiences you've gone through in the past, which will help you make those decisions. So get as much data as you can. It will help you be more objective in the decision-making process. It will help reduce the ambiguity associated with tough choices because let's face it, a lot of people hate ambiguity. I get it. I am not one of those people, but if you are, I feel your pain. I understand that it's hard when it's just not black and white clear. This is the decision that we should make. And never forget to balance that data with intuition and emotional intelligence. You have to trust yourself. And finally, I'd really like to encourage you to consider self-care when you have to make tough decisions. I know that when I'm faced with some really tough choices, there's a couple of things that help me get into a better frame of mind. First is get enough sleep and get some exercise. Sleep is amazing. It absolutely helps you be able to think clearly and to be more resilient and to handle what's thrown at you better. Exercise, it increases endorphins, so many feel-good hormones in your body. And for me, there's nothing like going for a run to help clear my mind. And that gives me clarity then on the decisions that I need to make. So I really want to pitch those two. Meditating is really important. I meditate every single day. And sometimes I make the intention of, I would like clarity on this tough decision, and then I clear my mind. Now, sometimes when your mind's racing because you got an important decision to make and you're stressing about it, it's really hard to empty your brain of thoughts. So here's a trick that I do. I think about those thoughts. Okay, this is Kerry as a leader making these decisions, and I'm going to put Kerry and these decisions on this box in a shelf. And they're going to sit there and they're kind of in my peripheral because I'm not making them go away. I'm just saying, you're going to just sit there on this shelf in this box for a little bit while I clear my mind and I really feel my body and my breath. And so I offer that as a suggestion for you if you have a hard time shutting off that chatter that you feel, especially when you are stressed, but you know that you need to clear your mind. Imagine putting those thoughts and your personality and your persona as a leader in that little box, and then just sit there. And then a couple of other things that I do that really helps is that I have a mantra. I am cool, calm, and collected, or simply I am. I am, I am. You can count your breaths. That helps too. And the other trick about meditating, and I know that this is hard because a lot of us will say, okay, I'm just going to meditate for 5 minutes, but I find that it tends to take me about 10 minutes to be able to get into the space where I've worked through putting my thoughts and feelings and my leadership persona in that box and really being able to sit with myself. So if you have a tough decision to make, do not rush through meditating. Give yourself a chance to get into that calm spot because it sometimes just takes a while and you are not failing. And I know it can feel really frustrating, but when you go from running 1,000,000 miles an hour to trying to calm your mind, you have to give yourself a little bit of space to be able to calm your nervous system and to get some of those cloggy, busy, noisy thoughts out of your brain. So that's my plug for self-care. If you have other things that you like to do that make you feel better, that help you reduce stress, by all means do them, but be patient with yourself. And if you need a little bit of time to be able to clear your head, to go for a run, to get some sleep, take it because it will help you make a better decision. So hopefully by incorporating these strategies, you can make the daunting task of tough decision making a little bit more manageable. Remember, you do not want to avoid making tough decisions. If you avoid making tough decisions, you are not a good leader. That is kicking the can down the road. That is not solving problems. And you are not doing your job as a leader, and you will not garner respect from your teams. People want to work for decisive leaders. So hone these skills. And when you do, you will not only enhance your effectiveness at decision making, but you'll also inspire confidence and resiliency in your teams because They are looking to us to help make those tough decisions, to help calm the waters and help them move forward and get through the change, through the decision as quickly as possible. Making tough decisions is an integral part of leadership, and with the right approach, you can make it one of your strongest assets. All right, with that, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I look forward to hosting you next week. If you like this podcast, please like it, share it with a friend, subscribe to it, go to YouTube. I really appreciate all of the support and getting the word out about Reflect Forward. And if you want to pick up a copy of my book, head on over to Amazon or to my website, kerrysiggins.com, and you can get a copy of the Ownership Mindset there. All right, I will leave you to your week. I hope you have a great one, and we'll see you next week.